The Chicago Cubs take 2 out of 3 from the Los Angeles Dodgers, while an injured elbow takes care of Justice Steele for the rest of this season. On the south side, Garrett Crochet gets his lip back, while the White Sox avoided history and perhaps maybe making some of their own coming up. We'll discuss. In basketball, the Bulls are getting ready to take on the Miami Heat later this week in their first game of the 2025 NBA in-season play-in tournament. Hate saying that, but it is what it is.
Mhm.
In football, Kyler Gordon gets paid by the Chicago Bears. And in golf, the Masters came down to a classic finish with Rory McIlroy getting his first Grand Slam. That and Old School TV Monday as the Monday Extravaganza of Second City Sports starts right now. Welcome to the all-new edition of the Monday Extravaganza of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded and we're live in living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago. Along with Miss LaKeena McGee, which is she. I ain't Sidney Brown, you know it's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Kim McGee on the Twitter, execute again, IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Excuse me. Please subscribe to our podcast. We're located at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you. But you decide to troll indoor, do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I've given LaKeena full powers to give you dumbos to be in, be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, shout out to the replay gang that's checking us out on the replay on our Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube pages. And of course, we give much love to the live game that's checking us live right now, also on our Facebook and YouTube pages on Sports Zone Chicago. And don't you ever forget our motto, whether we talk sports, entertainment, and more, no politics, we will always provide.
It will remind you of some of the best here on Second City Sports, of course, as the Bulls are gearing up for their play-in game against Miami. Woohoo! We'll preview the rest of the playoff matchups that are set. It was a Rory coaster yesterday, but Rory finally gets his Grand Slam in his first green jacket. Of course, Old School TV Monday, and some NFL news. The Bears give Kyler Gordon fresh paper, and Shedeur Sanders to the Saints. But first, Sid, let's go to the Diamond and talk some baseball as the Cubs I'll start with the good news first. They do get their lead back against the Dodgers, winning 2 out of 3, including a 16-0 thumping on Saturday night, which is the worst home loss for the Dodgers in like 60 years. And of course, that score is the largest shutout in MLB history against a team that entered the game with a 700 plus winning percentage, that's according to a minimum of 6 games. So, that the offense, killed it in that series. And, on the flip side, though, unfortunately, they lose Justin Steele due to an elbow injury. No worrying if it's Tommy John or just, has to, clear out some ligament damage. But, it's kind of a bittersweet there. So that's something that Craig Counsell's going to figure that out going to the rotation. But first, let's talk about that series against the Dodgers. I mean, they lose the first one in a tough one. Kind of the same thing as it was those first couple of times they faced the Dodgers. But look, they got their offense going, and they won 2 out of 3.
Yeah, the Cubs, after being shut out last Friday, as you mentioned, they outscored the Dodgers 20-5 in the last 2 games to take that series. 2 games to 1. You mentioned P. Crow Armstrong. He had two big home runs in last night's game. Michael Bush came out to play. I know Seiya Suzuki has been nicked up here, but we talk about also about Dansby Swanson coming up big, and he had that sports hernia injury last year. His bat has also been huge. But let's not forget Carson Kelly could be another hidden gem in his Cubs lineup this year as a backup catcher. He's called Mr. Cycle by John Shambi of the Cubs marquee TV network, but he also had a huge series as well. So, as we said at the start of the season, this offense for the Cubs is going to be interesting to watch. It's going to be fun to watch, but with the injury to Justice Steele and Shota Imanaga, who I still believe is going to be fine, even after his last start against the Rangers the other day last week. Your offense is going to get going, or is going to go through some struggles here and there, and the pitching is got to pick up. Now, Matthew Boyd, we're going to see him in the series finale against the Padres on Wednesday. I told you I was there last Saturday against the Padres where he showed up. He pitched a very good game there. We talked about the starting rotation last year, LaKeena, about Javier Assad and Hayden Wesneski, who now with the Astros. But we talked about those middle of the road guys carrying that starting rotation last year when Justice Steele was hurt the first time. But if Jed Hoyer thinks that those back end guys are going to do it again, you really asking for big problems. And we banged on the drum, LaKeena, for them to get another starter this offseason. Jed didn't do it. We said if injuries happen again with the starting rotation, you're going to pay for it more now. You cannot wait till July 31st. You got to make a move now.
Looking at that, Brett Brown's pitch to Jim, on that Saturday, in that Saturday's matchup against the Dodgers, and I think he's gonna have to step it up. I think Merriweather, they're gonna have to step it up too. So it's gonna be interesting to see who's out there on the market right now for the Cubs that Jed Hoyer could probably try to get to see. I mean, Lance Lansdale basically announced his retirement, so you're not gonna be able to get him. So I don't know who's out there now or who's on waivers. Maybe that's the only way the Cubs will be able to get somebody without having to give up anybody at this point of the season. But they're gonna have to get somebody. I mean, Tayon's been up and down. That back end's been kind of shaky. So yeah, they're gonna have to look. You're not gonna be able to. Your offense not gonna be able to score 15, 20 runs all the time. I mean, it'd be nice to do it every once in a while, but that's not gonna be the case all the time. So I'm kind of like, let's see if they can figure out something.
You listen to Second City Sports on Sports Jones Chicago. Sid LaKeena here with you talking Cubs baseball. We'll get to the White Sox and the rest of MLB following this timeout. But sticking with the Cubs offense, LaKeena, you mentioned they will go through some struggles. They went through the big-ass struggle last year after the month of May, which along with a bad bullpen cost them the division. But the offense as of right now is number one in baseball. And I just want to give you some statistics here. Entering last night's game, the Cubs are averaging over 6.5 runs per game. That's first in baseball. Total runs 112. You can add 116 as the after last night's victory. That's also first in baseball. Extra base hits 56. That's first in baseball. Walks 81. That's first in baseball. They were impatient last year, as you well know for sure. Doubles 31, that's tied for third in baseball, and home runs is tied for fourth in baseball. So, as we mentioned, this Cubs team can and will score runs, but when the offense goes through the struggles, can the starting rotation now minus Justin Steele, and can that bullpen situation, i.e., the closest situation, get figured out? Because if those two areas can get iron itself out, I think this team will be okay, even though they're in the National League Central. But if those two areas, talking about the back end, that starting rotation, and who's going to be the closer full time, if those two areas don't get figured out, it's going to be another long year. And with Jed Hoyer's future with this team on the line, they cannot afford to have any more setbacks. Yes, injuries are a part of the game, but you can't have any more self-inflicted wounds if your goal is trying to win this division to go to the playoffs.
They also had the highest run differential in baseball at 43. So, they do face the Padres, and as they stay out west, and that's going to be an interesting series. It could be, you have to take the over on that when it comes to runs scored. So they start their series tonight. That's going to be a little bit of a kind of an interesting series there out there in San Diego. And we could see maybe like a 10-8 or like 12-10, kind of games. I know they swept Colorado, but it's going to be interesting. You got Dylan Cease and Tyon facing each other tonight, and then of course you got Vasquez against Shota Imanaga, and then you got Pavita against Boyd. So those are your starters for that series. So it should be interesting to see if the Cubs, if you can just win two. If you can win two, that's fine. I mean, look, sweeping the Padres would be interesting and it would be great, but that's going to be hard to do. So yeah, you'll take 2 out of 3, just taking one series at a time.
If you're a Cubs fan, you worry about tonight's game because of Dylan Cease. I know he has a high ERA so far this year, but with the type of talent that he has, he's looking forward to turning it around. If you're a Padres fan, you hope it's tonight against the number one offense in baseball. You mentioned Jameson Taillon. It seems like he gets on a groove for a while. Then when he falls back off, he stays off for long stretches. As we talked about on our show last Friday in that Texas series, the second game of that Texas series, which he was bailed out by that Cubs offense, he did not look good. So he has to have a better performance tonight. You mentioned about Shota going tomorrow. I'm not worried about him. Wednesday's game is a rematch of the game 2 weeks ago that I was at, and Matthew Boyd really surprised some people. Maybe he could be a hidden gem for this Cubs team. We'll see after this starting in the next couple of starts after that for him. But I think it's an opportunity for the Cubs to take 2 out of 3. They did it here in Chicago a little bit over a week and a half ago. Is it a guarantee they'll do it again? No, but they will have their chances. Remember last Friday, we were previewing the Dodgers series. I told you they could at least take one game, and that was a Roki Sasaki game. He actually pitched well, but it wasn't until their bullpen for the Dodgers imploded, and they did the same thing last night. So the Cubs took advantage of the Dodgers' mistakes, i.e., their bullpen, and they got the job done. Can they do the same thing against San Diego again? We'll see.
Listen to Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you. Going into across town against for the White Sox. 2 out of 3, the Sox get the Red Sox. Chase Monter's been really solid since this being called up. Brooks Baldwin hit a walk-off on Saturday. Now, Garrett Crochet did get his revenge, if you will, taking a no-hitter into the 8th, but into the 7th, I should say. But, of course, the Sox were, lost that one in the rubber match there. So I guess they play the A's starting tomorrow, and what's going to be interesting here for I know that Sox fans need something to kind of cling on to because look, Monta's been playing very well, but again, this is a small sample size, so we'll see if he can keep it up. Baldwin too, so I think if you're the White Sox, you feel pretty good, but again, you're kind of like. I don't want to say you're stuck in something, but it's kind of like you just want to, at least not be as bad as you were last year. And at least so far they haven't. They're 4-11, but even still, they're not as bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And as I was talking with a couple of fans yesterday, I was at both games this weekend. I was talking with a couple of fans, and I said that, not saying this team's not interested to watch it out, but I think they'll be more interesting once they get the guys from the minor leagues that they're supposed to be up here this year, like the Kyle Teals and the Hagen Smiths, possibly, and Noah Schultz's. Coastal Montgomery's still a big ass question mark. I'll leave him out of the picture for the moment, but the players that we expect to see here on a big level later on this year, I think that's when the season is going to be real interesting. Now for the White Sox bullpen, it's been up and down this year, but you're starting to see some signs there, especially with my guy Cam Boozer, the left-hander. He's 31 years of age, but he's been getting the job done. The Sox starting pitching as well has been getting the job done. Shane Smith, again, yesterday, he matched Garrett Crochet pitch by pitch, in my opinion, I thought, but unfortunately, he can't get any run support. This guy should have about 2 or 3 wins under his belt right now, but there's no offense in front of him, so you feel bad for him right there. But this White Sox team is very interesting in that Chase Madraff, you mentioned, he made his debut on Friday. I like his defense. He could be the future shortstop instead of Coastal Montgomery. We'll see about that. We need to see more of a sample size from him. Luis Robert Jr. finally got off the schneid with his first home run of the year on Saturday. On the flip side, Andrew Vaughn, like I said last Friday, personally, I wish he can turn it around. Maybe eventually he will, but right now he's not even batting a price of a Sunday newspaper. It's ridiculous. And I know he's not going to be the first baseman going forward for this team. I know they brought him back this year on an arbitration deal, but his time is done here. And I know that pressure was put on him for him being the number one pick a few years ago. He did great in 2021 as one of those filling guys as the Sox won the AL Central then. But for the last 2 years, he's been terrible. And the Kyle Till should be up right now, to be honest with you, especially with the injury to Corey Lee, the catcher. You can place Kyle Till in this lineup, playing him part-time catcher, part-time first baseman. I think that'll be the way to go. Andrew Vaughn, he doesn't have any anymore.
All right, Sean Burke and Jeffrey Springs will be that's going to be the opener, the series opener for that A's series against the White Sox. Of course, you got Jonathan Cannon, who has been has been bad, but he's kind of been like up and down. He'll face Osvaldo Vito. That should be an interesting matchup on Wednesday, and the rubber match on Thursday. Let's see here. You got Davis Martin. I know, Sid. I know you've been I don't want to say his biggest fan, but definitely up there, and also to JP Sears. So should be interesting to see. Like, they shouldn't have no trouble with the A's, but then again, you never know. So yeah. So I think that the White Sox is going to be that should be an interesting series against the Oakland / Sacramento / NorCal. I don't know what you want to call them.
Oh, I start calling the Oakland A's and Sacramento on this show. But for the White Sox, they should not get swept. But as soon as I say that, they'll get swept. But they should take at least 2 out of 3. I'll raise the bar a little bit. They should take at least 2 out of 3. I know the A's had the better talent. I get that. But they're on the road, and they had a tough series against the Mets. We'll discuss that on the other side of this break. But the White Sox, for the way their starting pitching has been lately, they should take at least 2 out of 3.
All right, speaking of that break, we're going to take it right now here as we'll talk about the rest of the MLB. The Blue Jays looking pretty good. And then, of course, speaking of the aforementioned A's, they had a tough series this weekend. Should Yankee fans be a little worried as well? And look, I think some fan bases are kind of like freaking out a little bit, but we'll talk about that and so much more coming up next. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. More Diamond talk, even some basketball talk too. Time permitting, coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to the Monday Extravaganza edition of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded and real live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's LaKeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Ken McGee on the Twitter, execution again, IG.
As we continue our baseball talking, we're going to dive into some Bulls and NBA discussion as well for this segment. You have any question of those on those subjects, or indoor, you have any leftover thoughts about the Chicago Cubs or the Chicago White Sox, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments to the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
Going out west first, the NL West, the Giants, get 2 out of 3 from the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. Jung-Hoo Lee homered twice off Carlos Rodon yesterday, and they, as the Giants rallied from a 3-run deficit to beat the Yankees in the rubber match there. And should Yankee fans be a little worried right now?
Not yet. Not yet. I know that they have a no pun intended, a banging offense with Aaron Judge and Jazz Chisholm, who did he hit a home run in that game yesterday to close the deficit, but it wasn't enough. But I wouldn't worry about the Yankees too much yet. I know they're 8-7 right now in that heavy packed AL East, but I wouldn't worry about them just yet. But if their starting pitching continues to let them down, even though we all know that Garrett Cole is out for the year, but if guys like Carlos Rodon don't step up, Max Fried and Marcus Stroman and the rest of those guys, then I think they'll be in trouble. But right now, I don't think they're in trouble yet. I did watch some of that game yesterday after I got home from the Sox game. Logan Webb for the Giants on the flip side, he got rattled early, but he did settle down. You mentioned like Jung-Hoo Lee. He had 3 home runs in the series. He had 2 of them yesterday. I'm not going to sit here and say that the Giants, this hot start by the Giants reminds me of 2021, but they're a good sneaky ball club, and they played the game right and give Bob Melvin credit for that. So the Giants, as of right now, they're still in it. Will they challenge the Dodgers or not the Pirates? Will they challenge the Dodgers or the Padres? I'm not sure. Talk to me in about a month from now, and I think we'll have a definitive answer. But right now, they're out to a nice start.
All right, going to the Central for a second here. I think the Cubs, that they're 11-7, they're ahead in that Central Division right now. Milwaukee is always interesting because you thought that maybe, but I think one of their middle relief guys on the IL, so that could be an issue for them down the for at least for these next couple of weeks at least. And also since they swept their series, so they won 3 in a row there as well. So yeah, I think the Central is going to be interesting for the Cubs are like 2 games ahead right now, so that will be interesting to kind of look out for, especially with that Steele injury. Now the East, the Mets are starting to get it going a little bit, and they kind of had a tough series there against the Athletics. They shut them out 8-0 in the rubber match of that series. So now they're leading the NL East right now. I know that the Phillies had a tough series this past weekend, and it's kind of between those two. Miami's hanging in there, but I don't think they're going to be, in about a month. I don't think they're going to be up there, in about a month from now. The Phillies, lost 2 out of 3 to the Cardinals. So, what do you think about the NL East?
Excuse me. The East, like you said, Philadelphia is going through a tough stretch right now. You mentioned they did lose 2 out of 3 to St. Louis. I know Zach really got rubbed up yesterday, but I'm not worried about them. But I want to talk about the Miami Marlins. I know that no one expected them to get out to such a surprising start this year at 500. But Matt Mervis, he has, I believe, 5 home runs on the year. He really had a hot week last week of former Cubs prospect. I know those claimed there was no room from here in Chicago. So off to the Miami Marlins. He went, and he's really showing his range right now, his power range for the Marlins. Also to Sandy Alcantara, who was supposed to be traded for the last couple of years. Will that be an option for Jed Hoyer and the Cubs this go around? Stay tuned.
Yep. Now going into the American League, I should say.
Yeah, we're real quick, LaKeena, not to cut you off, but going to the NL
Okay.
Central real quick about the Cincinnati Reds. Now they're back at 500. I know they swept the Pirates. Shout out Hunter Green. 7 innings yesterday. Shutout ball. 2 hits, 1 walk, strikeouts. As I said, Cincinnati is one of my surprise teams this year. How interesting that people wrote them off the first week of the season. Now they're back at 500. They're scoring runs, and they're, I believe, tied for second place in the NL Central right now. And shout out Ellie De La Cruz as well. He hit a grand slam on Saturday on his bobblehead day.
Yep. Let's go now. Let's go to the AL. Let's start in the West. Rick out our buddy Chris Gilman's Angels. They're still at the top of the West right now. They went. Well, I know they lost 2 out of 3 against Houston, but they're still they're still at the at the top of the West right now, and we'll see if they can kind of keep it going there. But and I think we just see what happens there now. That's Houston. They've kind of put up and down. They needed that series more than the Angels did. Texas, I know they had a rough series this past week. Oh look, my Mariners, because they started getting going. They swept.
They finally decided to swing the bats.
Yeah, I know, right? I Cal Raleigh. I think he home run. I think he did home run like all 3 of those games against the Rangers. I know Luke Raley also had a 3 RBIs in that Saturday game. So yeah, they're starting to kind of heat up a little bit. The Mariners are.
Yeah, the problem with the Mariners, can they keep it up consistently? And don't forget they have Randy and Rosarina out there now, who they acquired at the trade deadline last year. So he brings that energy to that lineup as well. Cal Raleigh, as you mentioned, that contract extension is really paying off right now. So hopefully he can keep it going. I did get a chance to watch some of that Houston LA Angels series finale yesterday. Hayden Wesneski, as I brought up, in relation to the Cubs. He was on there last year. He started the game for the Astros yesterday. He got roughed up in that first inning, but settled down after that. The Houston's offense, which has kind of been up and down this year, they really got it together yesterday to take this series from the Angels. Now, can Ron Washington and the Angels really keep this up? That's going to be something, because I think Texas, even though they struggled this weekend, they got swept by your Mariners. I think they're going to be a team to hang around as long as they stay injury free. You know what the Astros are going to bring in. They're kind of in transition right now too, even though they still a good ball club. But the Angels, I'm not ready to proclaim them to that next level just yet. Talk to me in about a moment, because I still believe that Texas and Houston will be heard from before this long season is over.
You might be right about that. Going to the Central for a second, Detroit, they win 2 out of 3 in Minnesota. So it looks like Detroit. We'll see if they can keep it up. I mean, Detroit's gonna be. It's always been a fascinating team, and they'll be definitely a team to watch for us. So, I think I got them winning in the division. Meanwhile, the Guardians win 2 out of 3 against the Royals. So, what do you think about the Central?
Well, Cleveland, I know they won it last year. I kind of had my doubts about them this year. It was an important series for them to take over the week against Kansas City. Kansas City had a great performance by Cole Reagans yesterday, striking out 10 batters. As I mentioned about Kansas City before the season started, they were carried by their young pitching last year. Don't forget about Michael Walker, the longtime veteran. He's on their staff as well. And we know, they have Bobby Witt Jr., a future AL MVP candidate, to lead that offense along with Salvador Perez. So Cleveland, I know they're 8-7 right now. Kansas City is 8-8, but it's going to come down to, can one of those teams go on a hot streak and take off and perhaps challenge Detroit for the AL Central Division? We still have a long way to go, but we'll see what happens.
All right. Now, last but not least, in the AL East, we talked about the Yankees. Toronto, they kind of falling back to earth a bit. Didn't have a great. Well, they split their. Well, one of the games against Baltimore got rained out, so that was postponed till later this summer. But they do win, sort of split the series there. Now the question is, can the Blue Jays sort of keep this up, this pace? We know that they've got the bats, but then of course the pitching's been an issue for them the last couple of years.
And I'm worried about that about Baltimore on the flip side. We talk about their talent all the time, offensively with Cedric Mullins and Allen Rushman, who did hit a home run in last Saturday's win over Toronto, and Gunnar Henderson has really come alive as well. But I'm worried about Baltimore starting pitching in their bullpen. If they can get those two things together, I think they'll be in that much expected tough crowd of AL East division racing. And shout out to the Baltimore fans that gave Anthony Santander a standing ovation last Saturday. I know he left there via free agency to go to Toronto this offseason, but they gave a nice round of applause, and it was very much well deserved.
He actually had a couple of home runs in that series as well. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, so thanks for the nice little tribute. But here a couple home runs, and so
Couple of
yeah,
long ones.
little long ones here for you for good measure. Now you guys miss me yet? No, I'm just saying. I don't know if he said that. But I don't know if he was saying that in his mind, but hilarious. But going to this weekend's series, you got Washington, Pittsburgh. Tonight, these are the news tonight, folks. San Francisco and Philadelphia. That should be a fun one. Boston and Tampa Bay. The MLB Network Monday game. You got the Royals and the Yankees. That should be interesting. You got Atlanta and Toronto. Another interesting matchup there. Detroit and Milwaukee. The Mets and the Twins. Houston and St. Louis. We talked about the Cubs and the Padres and Los Angeles, and as they host Colorado, the Dodgers. I mean, I don't think they're going to be in a very good mood, so they've taken out on the Rockies and those City Connect jerseys. Good grief, I don't like those Rockies Connect jerseys, but that's a different conversation. But
Which one is worse, them or the White Sox?
well, at least the White Sox, you could actually use those as pajamas or something. But yeah, those other with the color combos of those Rockies City Connect jerseys are very off-putting. I'm just saying it's a little bit much, but what do I know?
Other series that starts later on this week, i.e. tomorrow, Arizona at Miami, Seattle at Cincinnati, Washington at Pittsburgh. The lone TBS Tuesday night broadcast will feature the Baltimore Orioles hosting the Cleveland Guardians. That's at 6:05 p.m. Chicago time on TBS. The other series that starts tomorrow, of course, the Oakland Athletics of Sacramento, as we call them on the show, they'll take on the White Sox on the south side. And we have the Los Angeles Angels take it on the Texas Rangers. Your other national television games broadcasting this week, Seattle at Cincinnati at 5:40 on Wednesday on FS1. And on Amazon Prime Video, this is a New York Yankees broadcast. It's the Kansas City Royals visiting the New York Yankees on Wednesday. That starts at 6:05 p.m. Central Standard Time, only on Amazon Prime Video. That's a New York Yankees broadcast. Is that your schedule for MLB for this week?
You listen to Second City Sports on Chicago. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you as we switch gears and go to the hardwood and talk a little NBA. And the season, the regular season, I should say, is over with officially. But some interesting things happening off the court, though, as the Suns have fired Mike Budenholzer. And that's the 6 different coaches that KD has dealt with since leaving Golden State. Go figure with that one. Also, of course, David Griffin, of course, he's a veteran executive. The Pelicans have voted to fire him. He was executive president over there with New Orleans. And of course, apparently Joe Dumars is a serious front-runner to be the lead basketball executive in New Orleans. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, going into the actual on-the-court stuff, the play-in series, the playing games are now set for both the East and West Conference. We'll talk about the East. This affects the Bulls. The Bulls, they play not tomorrow, but Wednesday against Miami again, and of course that'll be followed by Dallas and Sacramento. Those games will be on ESPN. So, Sid, what's your synopsis of this game against the for the Bulls against the Heat?
I think this is going to come down to who shoots the 3-point shot the best. We all know that the Miami Heat are one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the league, and the Bulls' defense against the perimeter has been suspect at best all year long. I think it's going to come down to the Bulls' defense. If they can shut down Miami's 3-point shooting, in particular Tyler Hero. I think the Bulls should win this one going the way. The Bulls have won 15 out of their last 20 games to get into the spot in the play-in. We mentioned Kobe White has been one of the best players in the NBA ever since the All-Star break after he had an injury-riddled first half of the year. Matej Buzelis, his confidence has grown throughout the second half of the year. Josh Giddey, Mr. Triple-Double. They're going to have to pay this man $30 million a year starting next year should they bring him back, which I think the Bulls management will. He's been playing very well. And let's not forget about some of the young guys like Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips as well. Give you some meaningful minutes as well. So this Bulls team, ever since the trade of Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, we talked about it 1,000 times. We'll talk about 1,001. This team has really played a whole lot better. And you can tell that head coach Billy Donovan really likes coaching this group. He doesn't have to deal with the other extra headache from certain veterans on I should get this many shots and I got to get this much playing time. I got to get this. I got to get that. Everybody with those young guys that fit into their roles. And then you bring in a guy like Nikolai Vucevic. You don't have to depend him on everything that's going on offensively as well. He could come in and give his double-double and 20 points and 12 rebounds a night.
I think my thing is with the Bulls is like you gotta have to set the tone early, and hopefully, Tyler Hero and anybody from Miami doesn't have a career shooting night in that game because that could happen. That's what happened last year. So that's the thing that you're looking for there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that matchup. Now the rest of your playing matches, of course. Speaking of DeMar and Zach, they faced the Sacramento Kings. They faced Dallas. So that should be an interesting series. And AD Anthony Davis, you got to wonder, he's been in and out of the line of these last few weeks, and that's really going to be the thing here for me with this. So where do you see this game?
I think it's going to come down to the inside play. You mentioned about Anthony Davis for the Dallas Mavericks if he plays. On the flip side, you have Domantas Sabonis, who's a beast inside for the Sacramento Kings. He can shoot it from the outside. He can operate in the play, and he's sneaky good defensively. On the flip side for Dallas, outside of Anthony Davis, Daniel Gafford, the one-time former Bull under the Jim Boylan era, I think he's going to be a factor as well, along with P.J. Washington. If those guys can stay out of foul trouble, I think Dallas will have a real good shot. But I think on paper, Sacramento has too much firepower. They should be able to win this game. I know I'm going to the odds. They're favored by 4.5 points at home, but if Dallas stays out of foul trouble, especially with the big guys I just mentioned, they really will have a big shot. But I think Sacramento will have a little bit too much offensive firepower to win this game. So if I had to, it's really a coin flip, to be honest with you. I'm going with Sacramento. If Dallas wasn't in this situation in terms of their injuries, i.e. Kyrie Irving, first of all, they would not be in the play-in situation. It would be some other team, maybe the Clippers is another team like that. But we had to deal with reality. I think Sacramento has a little bit more firepower offensively than Dallas does, so I'm going with the Kings at home.
Yeah, I feel like the Kings, they seem to have the better offense, but you never know. Like I said, P.J. Washington could have a career night. And I mean, like I said, usually these are kind of the games where you kind of like get those unsung heroes. So we'll see. But this game is probably like one of those games where you may get just that. I mean, we know DeMar, he's had some playoff experience, of course, so maybe he has a career night. So yeah, I think this will be one of those games where like you could probably pick either one of them and make a case for it, and you'd be fine with it.
Yeah. Let's go to the Tuesday matchups. As you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, Sid LaKeena here with you. Preview the NBA's play-in tournament, which starts tomorrow. Of course, we talked about the Bulls. They'll play their game at the UC on Wednesday against Miami. That's at 6:30 on Wednesday on ESPN. No CHSN for this one, so you don't have to worry about that damn antenna. So you toss that antenna at least for Wednesday's contest in the garbage can. Let's go to Tuesday's matchups. First, we'll have the Atlanta Hawks visiting the Orlando Magic. That's at 6:30 tomorrow on TNT. Orlando's favored by 5.5. We know that Atlanta's average at best with Trae Young. You still have Clint Capella there as well. But the Orlando Magic, they kind of had a rough season, but they had a nice stretch to end the year. They're the home team. I think they're the better team. I'm picking them to win. We know about Pablo Banchero. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has struggled this year since he left Denver, but he could be a veteran that can make a difference in this game as well. Don't forget, you still have Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony. So I think Orlando has a better complete roster, and I expect them to win.
Yeah, I think Atlanta I don't really see Atlanta again, beating Orlando for the reasons you said. I think it's one of those things where you're just like you can't really rest on your laurels if you're Orlando. I mean, you were able to get this far despite various injuries. I know Bogger being out for the year, but they were able to overcome that. So they give them props for that to finish at 500. But this is going to be the time where you kind of get that back to reality. But I think they will win this game against Atlanta.
In the second game of that TNT Tuesday night playing tournament doubleheader will feature Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, and the Golden State Warriors after losing a tough one yesterday to the LA Clippers in overtime in the regular season finale. They'll host John Morant's troubled goofy ass in the Taylor Jenkins not coaching Memphis Grizzlies. As we said, LaKeena, that Taylor Jenkins fire could have a negative effect on the Memphis Grizzlies. It has. I know they won their season finale game yesterday against Dallas, which that game really didn't matter. But I don't like the way Memphis has played ever since Taylor Jenkins has been fired over a couple weeks ago. As I said, with that Jimmy Butler trade, you do not want to play the Warriors if they're healthy come playoff time. Memphis is going to, as the kids would say, get that smoke tomorrow night. Golden State is motivated. I'm expecting Steph Curry to step up. Playoff Jimmy better come alive tomorrow. Draymond Green's going to be the anchor of their defense. Watch out for Brandon Podziemski. He had some moments last year in certain games, especially in the playoffs. I expect him to be an X factor coming off the bench. Golden State is too talented and too healthy enough to lose to the Memphis Grizzlies. I know the Warriors are favored by 6.5. This should be a blowout, but I'm going with the Warriors in the convincing win tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree. I'll keep it short and sweet. I think that the Warriors, look, we know that we know how we know how this team does in the playoffs. Hopefully we'll get playoff Jimmy, the Jimmy that led his respective teams to the NBA finals. So yeah, hopefully we can get that and perhaps maybe they can get into the main draw.
Yeah, and quickly, like we said, we'll get into a deeper dive into these playoff matchups on our next show on Friday, doing our second hour of the program on Friday, doing our NBA playoff preview show. But some of the matchups, both in the East and the West, are set. Milwaukee and Indiana will start on Saturday. Also, too, on Saturday, we'll have the LA Clippers versus the Denver Nuggets. Of course, they fired Mike Malone last week. We'll get our Detroit Pistons, New York Knicks matchup in the first round. And back in the West, we'll have the Minnesota Timberwolves against the Los Angeles Lakers. If you're a Lakers fan, you should be wiping your face off in relief because you avoided the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, I think if you're feeling pretty good, I think if you're the Lakers, you can play Minnesota. Not gonna say that's gonna be an easy series, but you guys think that's gonna be a more manageable series. I think Lakers could win this in 6. I think Minnesota will give them all they can handle, but again, Julius Randle's been up and down, and I know Anthony Edwards, he can't do it all by himself, so that's really going to be the thing here for that series. Now, the Detroit Knicks series is going to be interesting, for me, because Detroit did beat the Knicks, 3-1 in their season series, so that's going to be interesting there. The Clippers and Denver, that's the 4 or 5 matchup that. Look, we don't know how things are with Denver right now. If it's basically going to depend on if you're either Kawhi or Murray, who's going to stay healthy the longest. That's going to be the thing here for this series. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say, Denver has their new head coach is Rick Adelman's son. We don't know about his coaching style. Of course, they're going to run what Mike Malone ran all season long, but we don't know about his personality. We don't know about his substitution and patterns. Will he do the same thing as Mike Malone did? You assume he will in certain situations, but we don't know how this different Nuggets team is going to react. And as I said throughout the season, I'll say it again. Like I said, we'll do a deeper dive into in our next episode on Friday. But Jamal Murray had a series of a lifetime last year with those 2-game winners against the Lakers in the first round. He disappeared in the second round of last year's loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Michael Porter Jr., same thing, came alive in that Lakers series last year. Next round, got shut down by the Minnesota Timberwolves. I expect those two to step up, and we'll see what Russell Westbrook, how he's going to be used coming off the bench, along with Christian Brown for this series against the Clippers. And on the flip side for the Clippers, they've been quietly one of the hottest teams as well in the NBA. Kawhi Leonard, those minutes restrictions were lifted after the All-Star break. James Harden's back into his natural facilitator role. Norman Powell's been having a great year, especially shooting from 3-point ranges. And they have a couple of young guns on their squad too. So I expect this series to go at least 6 or 7, if not the full 7 games.
Milwaukee, Indiana. Those are like those are from the matches that are already set, and they split their season series. So you're going to be interested to see like I don't know if I don't think Dame will be available for Milwaukee, but it'll be interesting to see like these two teams are this could be definitely one of those toss up series. It feels like so. This should be an entertaining series.
Yeah, and as I told you during our All-Star break the show back in February, I said watch out for the Indiana Pacers. They're not going to go back to the Eastern Conference Finals, but they could cause problems whoever they play in the first round. And it, like you said, it stinks that Damian Lillard probably will not be available for this series. But Milwaukee still has Giannis Antetokounmpo. You still have Kyle Kuzma from that trade with Washington for Chris Middleton at the trade deadline. You still have some veteran guys on that team that I expect to step up, but I think Indiana has too much from them. Like you say, it will be a toss-up series. Indiana has to get out the gates early because you don't want to give a wonder animal like Milwaukee confidence, because if you do, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, you're gonna have to Halliburton, Siakam, Topman. I mean, those guys are gonna have to step it up because you don't want to give Giannis and the Bucks any kind of breathing room. So if you're the Pacers, you want to try to take control of the series early, because if not, you let Giannis and the Bucks hang around, you might pay for it in the end.
And those are the matchups that are starting on Saturday. The matchups for Sunday: Cleveland, Oklahoma City, Boston, and Houston. They're all waiting for their opponents is to be determined. Those four teams I just mentioned, their playoff series will start on Sunday. Boston, they won their 60-plus games along with Oklahoma City out of the West. Houston, I know people are saying that, well, they may could surprise some people. They may be too young to know. I was born not to know. Shout out Tony, 1988. But they may play with so much confidence they don't know they're not supposed to be here in the playoffs. We're talking about Houston. They have a nice squad with Amin Thompson and Alfred Shagun, and of course, don't forget about Fred VanVleet as well, and Jalen Green, who leads the way in the scoring wise for Houston. And also, too, let's not forget about Oklahoma City. There's a target on their bet. They're proving that last year was not a fluke. They're the number one seed this year. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander should be your MVP hands down. Mark D, their head coach for the Thunder, there's going to be a whole lot of pressure on them. Can their veterans like Isaiah Hartenstein, who they picked up summer from the Knicks, and Alex Caruso step up to guide this young Oklahoma City squad? These two veterans, their value will be proven and it will be determined how far this Oklahoma City team will go.
Going to be interesting to see because it depends on who they get. I mean, OKC, if they get, look, if they get, a Warriors, they could give them a hard time. If they get Sacramento, I mean, Sacramento. I think if you're an OKC fan, you want Sacramento. Just saying. So they'll be interested to see what happens there. Same thing with Houston. I think if you sort of same thing with Houston, if you get maybe Dallas or somebody like that. I mean, you won the series against Dallas, so I won't say it will be an easier time, but you can kind of get to there. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting who gets out of that. So we'll see what happens. And as far as television is concerned for the Saturday, ESPN will have the triple header: Milwaukee and Indiana, the Clippers and Denver, Detroit, and the Knicks. The ABC Saturday night game will be Minnesota and the Lakers.
Yeah, and your TV coverage for Sunday, TNT will start their coverage at night, and I believe ABC will have the doubleheader on Sunday afternoon. As I mentioned, Cleveland, Oklahoma City, Boston, and Houston will all start their playoff series on Sunday, and their times and on opponents to be determined.
All right, hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 coming up here on Second City Sports. On Sports Chicago, when we come back, Kyler Gordon gets fresh paper from the Bears. Also, to some more mock drafts and Kishadora Sanders. Speaking of Kishadora Sanders, and they're going to New Orleans because of injury. And also, too, of course, Rory gets his Rory Slam. Sports media news as Reese Davis decides to stay at ESPN. And Old School TV Monday, and so much more. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. More fun for hour 2 coming up right after this.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean,
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of this Monday extravaganza edition of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded in real life in the living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago. LaKeena McGee is she. Sidney Brown here is me. You can follow yours truly on Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my King McGee on the Twitter, X, and again, IG.
As we dive into some Bears and NFL draft talk for this segment to kick off hour number 2, you have any questions or comments regarding that subject, you could definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up of the screen for you.
Some NFL news first, as the Bears dropped this news in the middle of Sunday yesterday, as they agreed to a contract extension with corner Kyler Gordon. And it actually, the contract actually makes him one of the highest rated corners in the league. 3-year, $40 million extension that includes just over $31 million guaranteed. The highest played slot corner and contractually ties into the Bears through 28 seasons. So I'll say this. I mean, I think Gordon's been one of the few bright spots from Ryan Poles, who drafted him. Mm-hmm. And he's been actually one of the few guys that actually has done okay. That Ryan Poles picked. So I guess, I mean, it's fine. Look, I'm all for, a guy getting their fresh paper. I think Gordon definitely been one of the few bright spots in that secondary for the Bears. So yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue with this, him getting this fresh paper. Like, get your bag, Gordon. Get your bag, dude.
We talked about this around this time last week with our good guest, Mr. Wonderful, Mark Grody from 6'7" to score in Chicago. He talked about the Bears' next priority was getting Kyler Gordon re-signed, and they did that. And keep, as you mentioned about the numbers, keep that in mind, because if Caleb Williams decides to, if Caleb Williams meets up with expectations of being a franchise quarterback, especially under new head coach Ben Johnson, he's going to have a big payday in Ryan Poles. If he's still here three years from now, they're going to have a tough decision to make. Caleb Williams is going to come at a high price tag once his rookie contract is up, and Kyler Gordon keeps this up and perhaps make a Pro Bowl or two. The Bears will have a tough decision to make, and so as of right now, this is a good deal to keep things in a medium perspective as far as being under the salary cap. But Kyler Gordon could be gone if Caleb Williams turns out to be that dude, that franchise quarterback. You're gonna have to pay those two guys down the road, and it depends on what the number is. You may not be able to keep both of them, but that's for down the line. But as of right now, I'm with you, LaKeena. Kyler Gordon's been one of the few bright spots on this Bears team. We talked about him pairing up with Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson is one of the top corners in the league. He got paid around this time last year. Jaquan Brisker, his replacement may be coming via this draft. Of course, he missed the majority of last year due to concussion injuries. So Kyler Gordon's been one of the bright spots, not only in the Bears secondary, but like you said, in that whole defense. So congratulations to him. I expect bigger and better things for him this year.
Going to be interesting to see what happens with him under Dennis Allen's new defensive staff here. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, good for him, and that's going to be interesting to see. Like, I'm sure he'll definitely earn that contract. So I think I have no doubt that he will solidify that and be worthy of that. Now, speaking of corners, while one guy gets fresh paper, another corner has announced his retirement. Quarterback Patrick Peterson signed with the Cardinals to announce his retirement. He spent 10 of his 13 seasons there. Of course, he also played with Minnesota, and last season he didn't play. He did not play last year, but the season before he played for the Steelers. He went to 8 straight Pro Bowls with the Cardinals. He also is a 3-time first-team All-Pro, and just one of the better lockdown corners in recent years. He had 36 interceptions in 201 career games, including 2 pick sixes. He actually also returned punts for about 1,800 yards and 4 TDs when he was a rookie. So, Sid, Hall of Famer or not for Mr. Peterson?
I think he's borderline at best. Obviously, you threw up the numbers, and he was one of the best to do it in his time frame. But I think it's going to be a borderline situation for him, because you got to consider who else is going to be up for the Hall of Fame when his number is called. I believe it's 6 years after you retired, if I'm not mistaken. 6 years. So whoever's up with him, especially for those first-time eligible folks in his class, it's going to be very tough. I think as of right now, I'll have him borderline.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he's definitely one of those guys where he can probably I think he gets it eventually, but he might be one of those guys that may have to wait a few years just because of not long enough in longevity and everything else. So I'm kind of interested to see what happens when he does get eligible in about 5 or 6 years, especially the way they kind of have it set up now. It might be a little tougher to get in those first few years. He may have to wait a bit, but I think he will get it eventually. But it's going to be interesting to see if he does get in those first few years, he's eligible.
Yeah, I thought he retired a couple years ago, but I didn't know that he didn't play last year. So, like I said, he's been at it a long time, and so salute to him on a great career.
Fabulous. And teams doing OTAs right now as we speak, and Micah Parsons is actually there for the Cowboys. So I don't think people didn't.
You say Jerry Jones didn't forget his agent's name, huh?
I know, right? So that's kind of I think that kind of caught some people off guard that he actually did. So that's interesting that he's there. Now, sticking with the Cowboys, Dak's hamstring injury is improving. He said if he had to play, he could. So you can take that for what it's worth. So that's going to be kind of interesting.
It's easy to say that now when it's in your off season.
Yeah, I'll say it's April 14th. So of course you're going to say that now, but I don't know. But what else has caught your eye in the NFL? These last few weeks.
I want to dive into that New Orleans Saints with their first round pick at number 9. We talked about this a little bit via our chat over the weekend. Us two, and of course our girl Christine, the Queen Manica. She'll be back on the program soon, folks. She's taking a bit of a broadcasting break. But Shedeur Sanders' name is now being thrown around because Derek Carr, his shoulder may not be ready for the upcoming season. If he decides to have surgery, that's going to knock him out for the entire year. He's had an up and down career with the New Orleans Saints for the last couple of years. We saw Spencer Rattler and others get a shot at the starting spot last year for the Saints as they failed to make the playoffs again. So could Shador Sanders make sense at number 9 for the Saints if they want to go that route, or could they do have an option like the Bears should consider this option with their number 10 pick, trade out of that 9 spot and get multiple picks?
I mean, it's interesting though because we did talk about it, and that's going to be interesting. Now they do have Kellen Moore there, of course, the Saints. There's a new head coach, so that might be a good situation for him, for Shador, if it comes to that. Now, again, I mean, who he's going to throw to, basically, and that's going to be another thing. So, Kamara's starting to show his age a little bit, and it's kind of like sort of like the chicken of the egg thing with New Orleans. So you get think about it. We're gonna have to figure this out. So do they decide to perhaps maybe stay there, or perhaps do they maybe trade with the Bears, get into that top 10, and perhaps maybe maybe they do try to get Shador if he's still there, which by all indications he will be. So that's gonna be intriguing there. So yeah, that shoulder, who knew? One guy's shoulder could be a lookout for, especially as we get into the draft in about a week and a half.
Yeah. Like I said, could this affect what the Bears do at number 10? Who the Saints will pick? Now, the Saints pick Shador Sanders. I don't think that's going to affect the Bears at all. But should the Saints trade out of the pick or select somebody off their board that no one expected? I think it could not just affect the Bears. I think affect the rest of the teams behind the Bears going down. So the Saints are looking for quarterback help. Is Shador Sanders the answer for them? I don't know. Could they trade out of the pick and maybe pick Jackson Dart or maybe Will Howard? We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, look at some of the mock drafts that they have. Some of the newer ones that were updated over the weekend. I think some actually do have Shador Sanders going to the Saints. With this news about Derek Carr, but again, this is sort of like, we'll see what happens. But I know that up in Green Bay, at Lambeau, that's going to be kind of like the thing here. Of course, Sanders' stock is falling, so he actually is in Vegas visiting Pete Carroll and the Raiders. So could they perhaps maybe get go there too? So I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is actually at the time where right before the draft where things get a little bit, as we say, it's Lions season. So
yep.
That yeah, I mean the mock draft thing is a little bit I find mock drafts funny at this point, especially, but it is what it is with that. But yeah, it's gonna get a little interesting as we get closer and closer to the draft next week.
I don't know about you, LaKeena, but I kind of get this feeling that we know what the top 2, perhaps top 3 picks are for the draft, but after that, I think it's safe to say that the Giants will not go with the quarterback in the first round, whether Shador Sanders or somebody else. They'll probably go with Mason Graham or offensive tackle. But after the Giants, I think it's kind of a toss-up there. Well, I know New England has the number 4 pick. They'll probably go with a defensive guy or offensive tackle. But after that, I think it's a crapshoot. We know Tennessee is going to pick Cam Ward. We know that Travis Hunter is going perhaps number 2 to Cleveland. I think Joe Flacco's the starter there again this year, so he'll be receiving footballs from him. I think Jacksonville has the number 5 pick. And so I know not Shador. Travis Hunter was on their board according to some mock draft experts. But if Hunter goes to Cleveland at number 2, I think Jacksonville could select the office alignment or another edge rusher there. So we'll see what happens with that. The Raiders at number 6, you mentioned was Shador. I think that could be a good situation for him. I know they have Geno Smith there, but do you really think that Geno Smith, even though he's had a bounce back in the last couple of seasons with Seattle, do you think he's really going to be there for the long haul? If you don't think so, I think Shador would make more sense because Shador can learn behind Geno Smith for a year or two. I know Tom Brady was very high on Shador when he was with Colorado, so that could make sense. I know Ashton Genty is the consensus pick with all these mock draft experts. I get why Pete Carroll would do that. He had a strong running game with Marshawn Lynch in Seattle about a decade ago. So I could see that if that would come to pass. But Shador Sanders would make sense with Vegas. I wouldn't be mad if they did that. I know we talked about last week. Shador could fall to not Minnesota. He could fall to Pittsburgh at, I believe, 18. But with this news with Derek Carr and the Saints, he could jump back in the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, if that's who Pete Carroll wants, like you said, we don't know. I know that Geno signed at what was it, 2 or 3 year deals. I mean, he might retire after that because he's not getting any younger. So I think you want to have a backup plan in case, God forbid, he gets hurt or decides to retire or whatever. So I think you want to have that in your back pocket. Now, as far as the Bears are concerned, I mean, good Lord, I've seen like different mock drafts. I know Shamar Stewart actually visited with the Bears or is about to visit with the Bears as we speak.
We
Of
talked
course,
about him
the
last
edge rush
week.
man from A&M. Yeah, last week, I believe. And I know Colston loved him from Michigan, loved him at Michigan. I know his name's be thrown around, perhaps. The Jackson Genty thing is kind of starting to kind of taper off a little bit, thank God. I've also heard like Mikael Williams from another edge rusher from Georgia. That could be another name that's being floated around. It's probably somebody the Bears take. So I think it's going to be one of those things where it's all going to depend on after your top three, depend on what order. Whether we know Ward's going one, like you said. Travis Hunter 2. Maybe Abdul Carter goes to the Giants. Maybe not. Who knows? But Mason Graham maybe could be. I don't know. But after that, it's really kind of a crapshoot.
Yeah. In my perfect world, if Mason Graham would fall to number 10 for the Bears, I think the Bears would select him. But I don't think Mason Graham is going to go. Let's just say that, like you mentioned, Abdul Carter gets selected number 3 to the Giants. I don't think Mason Graham will fall outside of number 5. I think New England or Jacksonville will select Mr. Graham with one of those next 2 picks. So I don't think realistically Mason Graham is going to fall out of the top 5. But like you said, after that, it's a crapshoot. But I said this over a month ago to you and to our listeners and viewers that I would not get upset if Ashton Genty was selected number 10 by the Bears because of what Ben Johnson is looking for to build with his new offense with the Bears. And so I know that he had Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, a former Bear, when he was working with the Lions over the last couple of years with that tandem, and that tandem was actually good when healthy. And so you want to kind of build that here. But the two most important positions for the Bears to fill right now is still getting depth within that offensive line. Yes, we signed 3 veteran, traded for a couple, and signed a center, Chris Dahlman, out of Atlanta in the offseason. But you still need help on the offensive line. Depth is very important, especially with that whole line, period. And you still need a pass rusher. If they don't select a pass rusher with that 10th pick, you can still play with those 2. I believe they had 2 second-round picks. You can select your pass rusher there, and then you can select your safety and your backup running back with your later picks later on in the draft. But should the Bears select the offensive lineman with that 10th pick, you can use one of those second-round picks, perhaps pick up a couple extra picks, and then you can select your edge rusher there. But me personally, if I had the Sidney and Brian Poles seat at number 10, I would go with the edge rusher.
That's going to be interesting. Like I said, really going to depend on what happens after 3, and even 3 is probably not guaranteed that they'll take Abdul Carter now. With the Derek Carr injury, like some people are saying that maybe Jackson Dart, maybe Jalen Moreau, Will Howard, as you talked about, could those guys kind of sneak back in, to like maybe some teams may want to trade back to do that. So New Orleans is a pretty interesting spot here. And now as for the rest of the teams, I mean, if you're in in the back end of that, I think the Genty thing is going to be interesting too. I think I've seen him. Perhaps maybe he might go to He might go to Jacksonville. He might go to the Jets. He might go to. There's still some that are having him going to the Bears. So it really just at this point, it's kind of annoying. All these mock drafts, they're funny, but they're also kind of annoying too because you got about 12 different opinions. So I'll be happy once all this will be over with by next week. So. Let's just get to the nitty gritty of it already.
Yeah, we got a little bit over a week before that, before this all comes to an end, and we'll see teams' plans come to fruition. But we still got the rest of this week and around this time next week to guess and see what teams and what schemes they come up with to say, well, we were looking at that player, we were looking at this player, blocking other teams from selecting that player. Oh, we'll trade with you. We have this, we have that. As you mentioned, it's Lions season, and like you said, it is getting very annoying, and we can't wait for next Thursday to get here so we can finally lay all the BS to rest.
Oh gosh, this is Second City Sports on Sports with Chicago. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you. talking some more NFL. Anything else, kind of NFL or even draft related that kind of has caught your attention the last few weeks?
I'll just ask this one question to fill time. Where the hell is Aaron Rodgers?
Well, I mean, yeah. So there hasn't been any updates. Kind of all quiet there. I don't know if he's in like in a dark, whatever wherever he goes to. I mean, if you're Pittsburgh, like, do you wait on Aaron Rodgers to kind of like see what he does? I mean, I just saw somewhere where it says Minnesota hasn't completely closed the door on him. So I don't know. I mean, it's gonna be. This is going to be the kind of like, I don't want to say fascinating because it is also another thing that's been annoying at this point, but it kind of feels like, okay, I think he really wants to go to Minnesota. I know, yes, he was throwing catches with DK Metcalf. I know all that other stuff, but again, if you're him, chances are, if you do decide to play, he can still retire. But if you decide to play this coming season, do you go to Pittsburgh where you're going to have a very hard time, that very competitive AFC North? We're going to be playing outdoors and it's going to be it'll get cold, or do you play in Minnesota where you're going to play in a controlled environment for at least half the season? And I don't want to say that NFC North is going to be easy, but you'll have a better shot at winning that division with the AFC North. But again, that's just me.
Yeah, with Minnesota, we talked about this too a couple of months ago. You have a better talent around you with Aaron Jones at running back. You have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison on the outside as far as the receivers are concerned. The Minnesota's defense has been up there in the NFL in total defense the last 2 or 3 years. You mentioned they play indoors for 8 and 9 home games a year. And the only time you play outside is when you come to Chicago and when you go to Green Bay, at least within the division. So I don't know what Minnesota's schedule is like this year. They had to go outside the 2 division games, as I just mentioned. But we know at least for 60% of the schedule, you're going to play indoors if you're Aaron Rodgers. And that's what he's looking for. Like you said, with Pittsburgh, we know that the division is going to be tough. Cincinnati's going to have a bounce back year next year, at least on paper anyway. After almost everybody got paid. Cleveland's struggling. And also, too, Baltimore is looking to bounce back after having a disappointing exit after last year's playoff disappointment at Buffalo. So you already know going in it's going to be tough. So you just got to pick your poison and which is more comfortable for you.
All right. What do you think we're gonna find out about what Aaron Rodgers does? Will it be before the draft, or will it be after the draft? Will it be
I think it's gonna be after.
Yeah. Oh. Do you think during the schedule release, whatever that is, probably sometime next month?
Yeah, I'll say schedule release. Yeah.
They're probably like, "Hey, here's Aaron Rodgers. He's coming, playing for Pittsburgh or for Minnesota." So yeah, I don't know, but yeah.
And they'll talk of the league. I promise you that.
Oh yeah, Get Up and the rest of those guys are probably gonna be feeling.
And let's not kid ourselves. Aaron Rodgers loves the attention too. So the NFL schedule when it comes out, I'm playing for Minnesota. I'm playing for Pittsburgh. That'll be the first thing people talk about.
Okay, so to be continued with this as we'll see if whenever Aaron comes out of his if he's in a dark retreat, I guess we'll see what happens.
You listen to Second City Sports on Chicago City. LaKeena hanging out here with you on this Monday extravaganza on the program. We got to take a 2-2 break. We got to get into the Masters. I know, LaKeena, you watched the majority of it via your home office. We'll get into Rory McIlroy's Grand Slam accomplishments. We definitely got to hit on some sports media news and, time permitting, Old School TV Monday, and our also other subjects that may or may not come up in our sports potpourri segment. We definitely got to get a gift for that. We got to work on that at some point. I'm Sid. That's LaKeena. This is Second City Sports. You hang out here with us right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
And I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on this Monday extravaganza. You're locked and loaded in real live and living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's LaKeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, in the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my King McGee on the Twitter, X, and IG.
This is our last break of the show for today. If you have any questions or comments for us in our sports potpourri segment as we dive into Masters Sports Media News, Old School TV Monday, in a 9-year anniversary that occurred this past weekend in the NBA. Let's not forget about that. If you have any questions or anything that we discussed on today's show, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get up on the screen for you.
Off to the Masters we go as Rory McIlroy, after it feels like forever trying to get that career Grand Slam, he's done just that. Of course, it was the Rory coaster, as I call it, down there in Augusta, Georgia.
You should trademark that.
Yeah. So, no, there were other people that were doing that too. So there were like 5 other people that did that. But Rory beat Justin Rose in the first hole of the sudden death playoff. Of course, the way they do it in the Masters, when they get to a playoff, it's not like, best of 3 or 4. In this case, it's sudden death. So he birdied that first hole. Of course, he ended up winning his first green jacket. And joining guys like Gene Sarazen, Ben Hogan, Gary Player, Jack, and now Tiger. If you saw the message that Tiger sent out on his, the post he sent out yesterday after the Masters coverage. He and Rory got pretty close over in the last few years. He kind of looks at him as like a little brother. So that was a really cool post. If you guys can find and go to Tiger's official Twitter X account. But if you saw the emotion after Rory, after he missed that par putt on 18 in regulation, which you're like, you got to be kidding me. And of course, Justin Rose, came back, shot at 66, got within that 11 under, within that range. Excuse me. He was we didn't think look, Justin Rose is one of the nicest guys on in golf, so no one was going to look at him as a villain if he ended up winning that playoff yesterday. But Rory, came in, of course, buried that first hole, and just you saw all the emotion, and you kind of felt that it was a big relief, and everything else, a huge weight lifted off his shoulders. And you saw his wife, of course, his daughter, Poppy. Of course, I think she is old enough to kind of realize what was happening. I think she's like 4 years old, but I think she kind of realized something big was happening. So that was a really cool moment with them. And congrats to Rory. Now he's in golf immortality.
Yeah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he have 4 double bogeys, which led to the playoff?
Mm-hmm.
And so he had a big lead going into Sunday, and of course, with those 4 double bogeys, he let Justin Rose back in. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to catch it live because I was driving home from the Sox game, but I did see some of the highlights via the various highlight shows, and you could tell as you mentioned, with him all he's gone through, at least on the course. To get to that point, it was relief, but he was very excited as well. I think you probably know this more than I do, but from an outsider's perspective looking in, he was probably going to get that Phil Mickelson tag of okay, win the big one, you can get to the mountain. You can get to the mountain, but you can't get over the mountaintop to win the big one. Of course, Phil Mickelson, fair or unfair, had that tag for a long time until he won his first Masters many years ago. And with Rory being 35 years old, excuse me. I heard someone say this on one of the highlight shows last night. He's one of the first people that came up under Tiger Woods and watched him and competed against him. And as I ask the question all the time, LaKeena, who's going to be the new face of golf? Is this finally the one, or are we waiting for somebody else to come up behind Rory? So Rory did his thing yesterday. He held on. It had to take every inch out of him to finish it off, but it was a job well done by him. And congrats to Justin Rose as well. He could have about said, it's not going to be my time. I'll just go through the motions and come back next year. But he really fought his butt off just to force a one-game playoff. But he really forced Rory to go to a place where he emotionally and physically that he couldn't go to, and he pulled it off.
Yeah, I mean they've known each other for a long time. They played on Ryder Cups together. I mean, Rory, what's up for him to do? I mean, he's got all 4 Grand Slams now. He won the FedEx Cup. He won the Race to Dubai champion. He's won the Players. He's the number 1 right now. He's got 20 plus wins on tour. So what else is there for him to do at this point? But I think he wants to keep going. He said, look, of course he wants to savor this moment, but he wants to keep going for as long as he can. And look, 35, he can still probably win a couple of majors. You never know. So I think he's showing you that, hey, look, I mean, his last couple of years kind of show you that, look, I mean, this is one of the reasons why he was kind of touted after when he won his first major, just dominated the U.S. Open back in 2014, and like 10 or 12 shots, and kind of like went on from there. But yeah, he could have folded, but he didn't. So you gotta give him kudos for that, especially.
Yeah, looking at some of the other golfers that finished in the top 10, and especially with the Americans, Scotty Scheffler finished at number 4. DeChambeau has finished tied for 5th. Now, I told you, I believe on last Friday show, watch out for Connors, that Canadian. He finished tied for 8th. And of course, Bubba Watson finished tied for 14th.
Yeah, the top 12, of course, they get to automatic invite back. Of course, Homa English, he came back, shot at 68. Yeah, Corey Connors just couldn't get it going. His putter kind of let him down. He shot at 75, and he still ended up finishing up tied for 8th with Jason Day, and won 588 grand. So he'll be back. Also, Ludwig Aberg from Sweden, he was kind of like, you kind of figured that he might be, kind of get going for a little bit. That last 5 holes kind of did him in. He just shot 72. But look, he's only 21, so you got to think he's only going to go up from here. Zach Johnson, of course, you saw a little bit of him when he won the Masters years ago. He's got back in the top 8. Xander Schauffele as well. Sungjae Im. I mean, he's probably one of the cooler guys on tour. He came in, finished tied for 5th with DeChambeau. DeChambeau just couldn't get it going with his driver and his putter. 75 for him. So yeah, that was a yeah, that kind of did him in there. You're going to that amen quarter, but overall, it was a very. I want to see what the ratings are for this because I know, no Tiger, but you have Rory chasing history, get all the other great golf, in the back end. So I want to see what the ratings are. Will be for last night. Yeah,
it should be pretty high since it went to a playoff. Like you said, no
right.
Tiger Woods, no Connors, no Scotty Scheffler. Because it was going to a playoff which goes into the prime time programming. I think those ratings should be. I think it will be pretty high.
I agree. Yeah. So I'm sure CBS. You got to be feeling pretty good. I mean, you had a great men's national championship basketball game with Houston losing a heartbreaker to Florida, and then you had this great one with Rory. Finally getting his grand slam. So it was a good, nice couple of weeks. Last couple of weeks for CBS in the sports department.
Yeah, and looking at what I saw last night with the reactions on social media, it was very positive for Rory McIlroy. I know his emotions, as you mentioned, after he won, it related to a whole lot of people, and so I'm not going to sit here and say he's the next face of golf, but if he keeps rattling off victories like this in majors, I think he will be the next face of golf. But you could just get the sense, like I said, I always say you can take it with a grain of salt what people say on social media, but for what people were saying on television last night and this morning, what I saw on social media is very positive. So, but we'll see where the game of golf goes from here on out. If Roy continues to do this, I think he may become one of the new faces of golf. Like I say, he's still young enough at 35. That's not old enough to kick him into the senior circuit yet.
Right, exactly. So he got the PGA Championship coming up, I think in about a month. So he has a couple of those. So we'll see if he can make hay there. We'll see if Tiger, maybe Tiger will make an appearance. I know he says Achilles looks like crap still. So but he kind of played around with the people there a couple weeks back. So we'll see. But it should be interesting next couple of weeks in golf.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports All Chicago. Sid LaKeena here with you. Just a programming note: ESPN tonight at 6:30 on ESPN television is the 2025 WNBA draft. Paige Beckers is expected to go number 1 to the Dallas Wings. I don't know what the Chicago Sky going to do with their pick, but I think the WNBA has 2 new teams this year in Toronto in the Bay Area, out there, in the Bay Area. So. The expansion will be coming to the WNBA this season, but also Paige Beckers, here's the bigger news. She also signed with the league Unrivaled. I know they had a successful first season. She's going to make as much or a little bit more than what she's going to make in her rookie contract in the WNBA.
Yeah, I always say, look, I'm a capitalist at heart, so get that bag, Paige. She deserves every bit of it. So, I'm glad she was able to, go out a winner at UConn. So that could be interesting to see. She definitely deserves that money. And of course, and the Sky actually made a trade. They actually relinquished a pick from next year. So now they've got 2 picks. They got 10 and 11. So we'll just see what they do with that pick. So it's gonna be interesting what they do with that pick. But you can check the coverage tonight on ESPN. So if you're interested in that, it's there. It's like this. I think coverage starts at 6:30 Chicago time or 7 o'clock Chicago time. So you can check it out on ESPN if you so choose.
All right, let's go over to college football. LaKeena, you teased it before the break. Reese Davis was being flirted by Fox Sports. I read that over the weekend. But he decides to stay with ESPN for a little bit while longer. I think that's a great move for the 4-letter network. As I talk about, me, I'm not the world's greatest college football observer outside of Deion Sanders, what he's doing with Colorado. But I will give Fox Sports credit for this. Besides the NFL, they heavily involved themselves with college sports, putting both college football and college basketball during the college basketball season in prime time on Saturday nights, which really helped that network. Of course, college football is on all day on not so much CBS, but on Fox and ABC/ESPN. Fox has really dove well into their coverage of college football in their pregame show. I think it's slightly better than ESPN's. I know ESPN's is the standard. Shout out Lee Corso. He's been there since the Star Cup history about the same time. But Fox's pregame show, I thought it was going to take a dip when Reggie Bush left, but they really picked up steam the last couple of years, in my opinion. I think they're the go-to pregame show for college football now. Will they ever overtake ESPN? Who knows? But right now, I think they're on even par with College Game Day.
Yeah, well, Reese kind of took a hometown discount, you will, to stay at ESPN, so he could have made like oodles of money over at Fox, being the new host of their special their college football previews show. So, but yeah, I mean, good on him for saying, look, this was, he's been there for, good Lord, it's been like almost like 27 years. Jesus Christ.
We're getting old.
I know, right? We're first, joining, you can see, we first joined ESPN. I remember seeing him. He did some work, down there in Tuscaloosa for his alma mater over at Alabama. And 7 years, basically gonna be spending the rest of his career there. And look, he does a great job. I feel like he's a very underrated play guy too. He does a great job for the college hoops coverage and such. So good for him. And I think this is the better for it for game day, because I think you got to think that, speaking of Lee Corso, you got to think he's going to retire within the next couple of years, if not after next season. So I know I'm interested to see what happens with that. I mean, I've seen their Fox News kickoff coverage. I mean, it's okay, but again, if I were to choose, I think game day is more for me. I think Pat McAfee, whether you love him or hate him, can definitely give him that extra juice of energy that was missing, had been missing the last few years, and I think he has had a lot to do with that. So, we'll just see what happens there. But yeah, there's gonna be some interesting more stuff coming up, because remember, Brock Heward, he's walking. We talked about it last week. He's walking away from his gig at number 2 for the college football coverage. To coach his son in his high school football team. So. That's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. Dan Orlovsky, his contract's going to be coming up in a couple of months. So that's going to be, that's probably the next domino to fall too.
Yeah. And also, I just wanted to make this point about game day. And you mentioned like Lee Corso may be retiring in the next couple of years. And actually, this person could take his spot. He has not been bad on television. Nick Saban. I know some people say he could have done this much sooner, but he was getting all them checks from Alabama until NIL and the transfer portal arrived just after COVID. But Nick Saban, I will say this, he's been an added jolt to that college game day show as well.
Yeah, I mean, people forget that he actually has a great personality. He's actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
He actually is pretty funny and engaging. So I think we're seeing more of that. So yeah, he actually starting to look a lot younger too. So go figure with that one. So yeah, that's gonna be interesting to see what happens there. If there's any other big surprises. We saw what happened with CBS, and of course Gary Danielson. Now, so this gonna be his last year doing the college football coverage, and of course Charles Davis is gonna take over for that. So might be even more dominoes falling. So we'll see what happens there. Now, speaking of the NILs, I guess if you guys know what's going on with down in Tennessee with Nico Amaleva, basically wanted to, redo his contract, but Tennessee basically told him to go pound sand, and now, he's in the transfer portal. I mean, this is one of the pitfalls of NIL, folks. Jeez.
Not all schools, as we said, I think last week or the week before, not all schools are created equal. With these Power 5 conferences in your middle of the road mid majors, you're going to see a lot of difference between how much a school like to say like Minnesota Golden Gophers have in NIL, Final Illini, of course with those big schools like Texas, Oklahoma, now Tennessee, Ohio State, Oregon. You're going to see the big difference of how much they have in NIL money. And it's going to affect a lot of way. Affect a whole lot of way these kids move.
Yeah, so I know that some people are saying that there needs to be kind of like a little bit of structure there. So, that's going to be interesting. But yeah, we'll see where he goes. But I know he's going to be visiting some schools. But yeah, I guess the transfer portal is going to be a little bit interesting, especially on the football side. We know it's already getting interesting in the hoop side. But yeah, it's going to be even more interesting because you got some of these schools, they're doing some have foregone the spring games, for that reason. But that's. It continued, as they say.
Yeah. You listen to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena here with you on this Monday extravaganza. Sticking with the sports media news, I forgot to watch this program as we transition over to hockey. Sam Rosen will retire after this season. Of course, the Rangers missed the playoffs. Of course, he did the Bears preseason games many years ago. And this will be his 40th and final year calling games on television for the New York Rangers. Kenny Albert will take over the full-time role starting next year. Of course, Kenny Albert has been calling games for the New York Rangers ever since the 95-96 season. Of course, he's the number one TV voice for the NHL and TNT. I know the regular season ends later this week, and their playoffs will begin, I believe, early next week as well. So congratulations to Kenny Albert. He'll be the full-time TV voice for the New York Rangers starting next season. Congrats to Sam Rosen on his retirement. Of course, he had that iconic call when teams were allowed to do Stanley Cup final games locally until that lockout in 1995. This is one that will last a lifetime as the 94 Rangers beat the Vancouver Canucks in Game 7 at MSG. And him and John Davis did a game together. Of course, they were the longtime TV voices of the Rangers in the 90s and the early 2000s. I think they called the game for TNT, I believe, last week. I forgot to watch it, but Sam Rosen's one of those distinctive voices. Of course, he did the NFL on Fox for a number of years. He did a few Bears games, as you well know. So it's one of those golden voices that decided to call a career. Job well done. Congrats on a 40-year career in broadcasting.
Yeah, very underrated. I feel like because he's called pretty much. I know he did some college hoops too. Back in the early '90s. So. He's been doing this for a long time, and look, good on him. He's earned his retirement. I'm glad he actually able to get a chance to call a Stanley Cup final for the Rangers. So that was interesting there. Of course, Joe Micheletti, of course, will return to the broadcaster crew as well. While Alex Faust will fill in for Albert. Of course, he has a lot of national commitments. So, but yeah, Kenny Albert has kind of made a name for himself the last 20, 25 years. He's done. He's doing NFL. He does hockey. I think people were looked at him and thought, oh, he's just Marv's kid, and he's just got it because of his name. He's showing you that he's more than earned the right to be on his own, to stand on his own. So good for Kenny, and like I said, happy retirement for Mr. Rosen, but also too Kenny Albert showing you why he is one of the best broadcasters in nationally.
Yeah, Kenny Albert has really worked his tail off over the years as well. I think name one sport he hasn't done. Like I say, he's done it on MLB, NBA. He's an occasional fill-in for the New York Knicks. He hasn't done it nationally, but he's done a few Knicks games over the years as a fill-in voice. Of course, he's done baseball. He's still one of the originals from the NFL on Fox, and of course, hockey is his niche right now. So you talking about a jack of all trades? That's Kenny Albert right there. So the Rangers are in good hands.
Yes. Excuse me. Speaking of the NHL, like you said, they're finishing up their regular season. Of course, the Hawks, face the Habs tonight in Montreal. That's gonna be on ESPN Plus. Still a lot to be decided here on the playoff front for the NHL. Of course, like you said, the Rangers have been eliminated, so don't have to worry about that. We're on the Eastern Conference. I think there's still a couple of spots left to be decided on the Western side. It feels like so. I think it's gonna be between Minnesota and St. Louis. I think Calgary could also sneak up in there as well. So so I think there's 3 teams fighting for those last 2 spots in the West. So gonna get interesting. These last couple of games.
Yeah, we all know that the Stanley Cup playoffs is the greatest playoff tournament in all of professional sports. Of course, the Holy Grail, the Stanley Cup. It takes 16 wins to get to that cup. It's going to be very interesting this year. We'll probably do a deeper dive into this on Friday and perhaps on next Monday's show as well. I know Winnipeg is the number 1 team in the West. I know LA and Edmonton, they're going to play in the first round again. Can the Kings finally get over that hump? Even though they had a better season, a regular season this year, will Winnipeg, could this be the year they get to the Stanley Cup final? Well, Vegas, or you mentioned the Dallas Stars, has something to say about it. Me personally, I think Dallas will have something to say about it. Colorado quietly having a nice season again. Can they have something to say about it as well? So even though Winnipeg is the number 1 team in the West, I think the West is very wide open. Now in the East, Washington. Will they win the cup? They surprisingly having a nice year. Ovechkin's record is now out the way. They can focus in on the playoffs. I think this is the first time in years or in history that the Rangers, the Bruins, and the Penguins will not make the playoffs. That's telling you something.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I think this is the first time ever in 3 of the original 6. I mean that's kind of nutty that those 3 are not going to make the playoffs. But even still, I think it's still going to be a great Stanley Cup playoffs. Of course, Columbus and Montreal, those 2 are going to be fine for that last spot in the East, the playoff spot in the East. So they got a lot to play for against the Blackhawks tonight because they got to keep pace. So, that'll be interesting to see what happens in that game tonight. But yeah, it's going to be kind of, So, I mean, the Jets, for the first time ever, they won the President's Trophy. So, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. And I guess that is the first time they've won the President's Trophy. So, in the East, like I said, I'm a Carolina Hurricanes girl, but Toronto, they're still kind of making things interesting there as well. Washington, we'll see if they can make it. Like you said, now that Ovi's got the record, he can concentrate on winning another cup. So we'll see. Florida may have something to say about that. Also, Ottawa too. I mean, can Ottawa break through? So yeah, it's gonna get, like I said, we'll get more into it next week. But it's gonna get a little interesting. The Stanley Cup playoffs.
All right. You're listening to Second City Sports on Chicago. See LaKeena here with you. We'll get to Old School TV Monday in just a moment. LaKeena, I heard something about this organization that promotes foster care, but they use the game of baseball to promote the message. I know they were featured on 60 Minutes, I believe, last year or a year ago. Have you heard of this organization called the Savannah Bananas?
Yeah, they've been around for a few years, I think. I know I haven't watched any of their games, but I have heard of them. So they're kind of like, well, you probably explain it more than I can, Sid.
Yeah, I just did like a second ago. They use the game of baseball to promote foster care and promote the game of baseball, and they wear yellow uniforms and they've been getting reactions all across the country. They started down south, and then they played certain games in minor league ballparks, and now it's becoming full time for them to play games in their games in major league ballparks whenever the teams are not using the facilities. They're going to have their season being broadcast this year on ESPN2 starting on April 26th in South Carolina at Memorial Stadium. And they're going to do their MLB tours again this year, July the 5th in Boston, Fenway Park, I should say. August 1st in Camden Yards in Baltimore. August 2nd also in Baltimore. August 9th in Coors Field in Denver where the Rockies play. And, of course, they will be coming to Chicago this year, but on the south side, August 15th and 16th. August 15th, the broadcast will be from Chicago, from Sox Park at 7 o'clock Chicago time on ESPN2.
Yeah, I mean, they sold out, major league ballparks and NFL stadiums and college football stadiums for, I would say, the last 5 or 6 years. So it's a nice, you get a little bit irritated, but also you're doing it for a great cause too. So I saw the clip yesterday on 60 Minutes, and look, these folks have been doing their thing. So we're just to see if it's getting attraction on social media, and good on ESPN. Look, they got time to fill. So it's time of year. So yeah, might as well do it this way. That could be a nice little warm up. So they play baseball and entertainment. So this is sort of what MLB fans want. So they can kind of lead into that. So I might check out a couple of those games. We'll see.
Okay. And one more headline from the sports media world before we close out for Old School TV Monday. Netflix plans to release a tell-all doc on Brett Favre's scandals. The documentary will debut on May the 20th. It's going to be a 6-part series. If I have it here, Brett Favre tell-all documentary will hit Netflix next month. It will be an untold series that'll air on May 12th. It won't sugarcoat the former NFL star's controversial off the field life. It will focus on his legal battles to his personal issues that have plagued his reputation ever since his retirement in 2010. We'll see if this will be better than a 30 for 30 doc.
Yeah, because it was definitely pro Favre. So yeah, they'll tell it all as they say it. We'll see if Favre sues Netflix. I think that might be a losing battle for him, but we'll see.
Yeah. So that's coming out on May the 20th on Netflix. Anything else before we close out with Old School TV Monday?
Just one more little media note here. Speaking of kind of going along with the grain here, AMC TV is will be profiling the 49ers teams from the 80s. It'll be an all new docu series that will premiere. It won't premiere until next year, but it'll be the story of the dynasty for the San Francisco 49ers back in the 80s. Expect to hear from guys like George Joe Montana, Steve Young, Jerry Rice, Ronnie Lott, among others. This will be in partnership with Skydance, NFL Films, and Religion of Sports. That company led by Tom Brady and Michael Strahan. That in that group. So gonna be their first big produced docu series. So I expect to hear a lot of this stuff because the NFL was a totally different sport back in the 80s. So I don't give a year for those days, but it should be a good doc coming up on AMC TV.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear from Ronnie Lott. Remember, he broke his pinky when he was with the 49ers back in the day. He played without a pinky for a while. And of course, remember that famous and Randy Cross, we should probably we'll bring him back on the show at some point in front of the show. He was on the those San Francisco 49ers teams in the 80s as a star offensive lineman. Remember back in 1988, the late Bill Walsh wanted to make that transition from Joe Montana to Steve Young, but it wasn't as smooth as people thought because Joe Montana was getting beat up, and Steve Young wasn't quite ready yet. Because remember, from the year before, he came from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after spending a couple years in the USFL. Talking about Steve Young, so that transition wasn't smooth. And plus, the 49ers were getting toward the end of winning their Super Bowls. Of course, they were the team in the 80s winning, I believe, 4 Super Bowls during the decade of the 80s. And I definitely want to hear the behind the scenes stories of what happened during, and after that 1990 NFC Championship game against the 49ers where they failed to three-peat. And remember, that era of the 49ers came to an end after that game.
Yeah, we should get Randy on to see if he was interviewed for this doc. I mean, we'll definitely should reach out to him and see if he was interviewed. But yeah, I think they'll probably tell it all. So we'll see. But yeah, that's gonna be interesting. Interesting docu series. You'll have to wait till next year probably. Maybe they may premiere right before the Super Bowl, but who knows? But yeah, that should be interesting. This will be definitely interesting doc to kind of go behind the scenes there.
All right, this is Second City Sports on this Monday extravaganza on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena here with you. We're gonna make this quick, but we usually close out every Monday show with a salute to an old school TV show we call Old School TV Monday. This week, LaKeena, we're gonna take it back to September 12th, 1993, Sunday nights on ABC. It was Lois and Clark, the New Adventures of Superman. It starred Dean Cain, a young up-and-coming actress named Terry Hatcher, Lane Smith, Eddie Jones, no, not the basketball player, Kay Kalin, Justin Whalen, another rising star at the time, Tracy Scoggins, and John Shea. It was an American superhero television show based on the DC Comics character Superman, created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. It starred Dean Cain as Clark Kent, Superman, and Terry Hatcher as Lois Lane. It premiered on ABC from 1993 until June 14th of 1997. Developed for television by Deborah Joy Levine, the series loosely followed the modern origin of Superman established by writer John Byrne, in which Clark Kent is the true personality and Superman is a disguise. The series focused on the relationship and the romance between Lois and Clark as much as the adventures of Clark's alter ego Superman.
Yeah, it gave like a nice. It was one of the first shows to do like that, the little mix of both, like kind of like the romance and the buddy romance between Lois and Clark and the adventures of Superman. Some of the other iterations you've seen, like it was more one or the other. This was one of the first shows to actually kind of show both sides of that. And Lois, I know Terry Hatcher has said this to this day that she kind of lobbied for the producers to kind of make her not more of a damsel in distress, but kind of like a strong, not a damsel in distress, kind of like that strong female that could get herself out of situations that always depend on Superman. So they kind of give a good mix on that. John Shea, who I adored for a long time, he played Lex Luthor, and it was kind of interesting how they kind of they kind of set it up. But I will say though, it did jump the shark when they did get married. Though I think that kind of that kind of killed it right there. It kind of could have went on for another couple more seasons had they not done that. But television, weird thing. But yeah, I like the show. I thought it was really solid. But yeah, it jumped the shark when they let them get married.
yeah, just like Kangaroo and Mr. Cooper. Not to transition over to another show, but remember when they knew that show was over, they had Mark and Vanessa get married. It's like that really killed it right there. It's like okay, you didn't have to throw that show under the bus. But speaking of Lois and Clark, the series weekend in this Sunday 8 p.m. Eastern time time slot, and it was shifted to 7 p.m. 6 o'clock Chicago time in January of that first year, and it was moved to Saturdays in the spring. The ratings dropped even further, in the show finished in its last season in 104th place, averaging less than 10 million viewers per episode. It was removed from the schedule in May of 1997. When the network canceled plans for season 5, the producers and writers of the show were unprepared, and ABC paid an undisclosed sum amount to Warner Bros. In order to get out of the second half of the 2-season commitment they signed at the end of season 3.
Yeah, that was a rarity that that show would do that. So yeah, I mean, because I think I remember when the producers said that it was sort of like they were caught off guard when they got canceled. So they were already kind of prepping for next season. So yeah, I'm sure ABC had to take one for the team, if you will, by paying the producers that amount of money. And I'm sure that was a lot of money for the time in the late 90s. So yeah, they really didn't have a choice there. But would it matter? I mean, what people watched that 5th season? It was already like 100 and something. So I don't think anybody would have missed it if it came back here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it could be it was aired on TNT in the late 90s and the early 2000s, but the entire series became available on HBO Max back in August of 2021. I know you can see some clips on YouTube, so check it out there. I'm sure there's some other places that you can be streamed as well. Hulu too.
They stream it on Hulu. Yep. I think the last like 3 or 4 years it's been on Hulu. Yeah, so you can pretty much watch it on I think it's on Hulu as well. So yeah, so Max on and Hulu. So if you guys want to and I'm sure it's on one of those Pluto TV channels too. I'm sure it's somewhere on there. So if you got Pluto TV, it's free. So but yeah, I've seen it on there too. So there are other places you can watch it to get that nostalgic.
Yeah, I'm with you. After they got married, it just killed it. So it's like, yeah, they threw that show under the bus. It's like, well, we ain't gonna do anything with it, so it's just marry him and throw him in the garbage can. So for this week's edition of Old School TV Monday, we salute the early 1990s TV drama series, Lois and Lane, the New Adventures of Superman. LaKeena, take us home.
Oh, also too, leaving my Dean Cain, side-eyeing him for his political stuff. I'm leaving that alone.
That's another show.
That's another show, but yeah, but I know Terry's still been doing a lot of Lifetime movies lately after Desperate Housewives. So good for her. But yeah, remember, yesterday, 9 years ago, of course, Kobe Bryant played his last game. They showed clips of that. You saw Vanessa and the girls, they were cheering him on. You saw Jack Nicholson and Jay-Z, Kanye before he totally lost it. I'm leaving that alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's watching those things is definitely bittersweet now because you saw what happened after that, and it's tough to watch it now. You kind of help.
Yeah,
you can't.
I know you can catch. Yeah, you can catch the full game on right here on YouTube. I think you can catch the ESPN broadcast with Mike Tirico and Hubie Brown, who called the game for ESPN. And if you remember, LaKeena, on ESPN, I think that was on ESPN 2. And on the main ESPN, the Golden State Warriors were going for that 73-win record, which they got over the Memphis Grizzlies in 2016. But Kobe Bryant scoring 60 points in his last game. Remember, Utah they were in the hunt for the playoffs, but the Houston Rockets got that last playoff spot by winning that game a couple hours before. So when Utah took the floor, their playoff chances were ceased. So Kobe Bryant went off in his last game scoring 60 points, and his famous words after addressing the crowd following that game was "Mamba out." So one of the best moments in NBA history, and to close out the career of the late great Kobe Bryant.
All right, a couple some more breaking news. Will Riley, the standout freshman for Illinois, has announced that he's going to enter the NBA draft. He's number 15 draft prospect. So yeah, of course was named Big Ten Sixth Man of the Year. This is also in conjunction with youngest Jakob Jonas. Announced that he's also going to the NBA draft. So Brad Underwood losing a lot of his guys to either the transfer portal or to the draft.
Yeah, he's got a lot of work to do.
All right. On that note, you can follow me at LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, executing in IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sidney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80, SIDKID80, SIDKID80. Be sure to download the Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We're on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're ready, give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
Of course, you can catch Sports Zone Chicago's our show and other of our great content anytime, anywhere on the replay on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. Once again, of course, you can catch repeats of our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas, What's Up Cousins, so much more, all right there on the Facebook and YouTube channels of Sports Zone Chicago.
And you know we will provide.
And of course, I said teased earlier, but we'll reiterate real quick. Of course, right before the NBA playoffs, we're going to catch our NBA playoff preview roundtable. Of course, we're going to have some of your favorites coming into the preview of the playoffs. Will the Bulls be in the main draw or fighting for a spot in the main draw coming up this weekend? We'll see about that. By this weekend, we'll see about that. So you can catch it on Friday at 1:00 right here on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook YouTube pages.
Yep. For LaKeena, I'm Sid. This has been Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. You make it a great day, a great week. We'll catch you right back here on Friday. As LaKeena said, don't forget about our NBA playoff preview show this coming Friday on our next episode during the second hour of the program.
Go Bulls. Let's go. Holla.
Holla.